And I think that's absolutely it. And so, like the conversations I have with people here, I don't have a lot of people in my real life that want to have these types of conversations. You know, the one thing I would say is I didn't have like I just realized this a couple months ago. My meaning crisis was when I was watching it really hit it started happening with all this cultural war stuff. I was just seeing that this political like stuff was not getting fixed. Like I just something was broken, and I just could tell that something was wrong. I had enough. I have faith. I have faith in everyday Americans that if given a chance to vote, they'll try and keep somewhat. If you give normal people the opportunity, that they'll be able to keep it somewhere in the center, you know. And then I was kind of a political wonk, so I knew certain counties, so I could track certain counties, and when there were certain trends or whatever. And on that election night in 2020, when I went to bed and then I woke up, it's 6 in the morning, and I saw all these weird anomalies. Like the one that happened was in your state, Wisconsin, Chad, where they dropped 100% of all these votes. And the vote went like this, and it went to 300,000 overnight. And I realized they stopped all the voting. And when I woke up that morning, I knew immediately, oh my God, our vote, our votes don't matter anymore. And I only knew that because for 20 years I had tracked at this real detail level, and I saw these anomalies, and I saw them forcibly kicking people out of polling stations in Philadelphia. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. This thing, I had this faith in the United States. I had this, I had this faith that this thing wasn't so corrupt that they literally would not give the regular people their opportunity to speak. And it became so obvious to me. So my meaning crisis was, and this was right before I hit the bridges of meeting, is I had to try and figure out to like, oh, this thing is much more corrupt than I ever thought that it was. And this wasn't just one political party. I mean, this is just the whole thing was so far corrupt that the people weren't going to be able to have their say. And that I had to grieve that. Because I just had this faith. And so, one of the things that really happened to me is that I needed to have that political thing totally smashed in me. And that was a good thing. Like that was in some ways, like almost the USA was an idol, like this belief in, of course we weren't as good as we needed to be, but there was this ideal that was out there that I believed my whole life. And so that was my meaning crisis. And what I realized was I didn't want to keep having the same conversations where people are just doing this, because that's not going to work. And that wasn't the solution. And so what I really liked about coming in here, the first thing that I was drawn to is people were having conversations about tough things, and they weren't stuck in the political, like they weren't arguing about red, blue stuff. Like they were talking about really interesting things and going back and forth. And so there was good faith dialogue going on. I found that first that fascinated me. But then the deeper I got to know and I got to meet these people, these are amazing. Like they're amazingly smart people. Some educated, some not. There was all this wisdom, and there was all this stuff. It was it was quite fascinating to me, really, what was going on. And then the other thing that I didn't realize, but I came to realize, is I struggled with we call them Sunday school answers. So the really tough questions of life, like why is there human suffering? Like like the questions you should ask, right? Like if there is a God, then why is there so much suffering in this world? Like if you just get some Sunday school answer, that doesn't do the trick for you. And even though I knew I had this faith, some of these I just felt like I didn't realize how many of the answers that I, weren't good enough yet. And then people were having these depth conversations where I was able to take what was a lot of wisdom and a lot of things that I had, and I was able. It took it to the next level, and so the depth of what you can contemplate here is something that I've never experienced in any other group or community that I have. And so when you can do that, it's amazing. And the one thing I have our good friend Jess P, who's a part of this community, started talking about where if you have these big hairy questions and they're not getting answered in your life, and it's lots of different types of big hairy questions you have, like the hard ones, when you can come together, when all of a sudden something clicks, like you understand it, like something makes sense. When that comes together in you, Jess said, that's healing. Like when you can integrate something, where you had this disconnect, or maybe you didn't know it exists, but when all of a sudden you can integrate something and you have that aha moment. And what that is like once you've learned something, you'll never be the same again. Like once you know something and understand something at some level, and those tumblers work together, we every now and again we have some of those moments. And those are those moments to where, like, so that'd be like that spark, that moment that Jess would call that's healing, you know? And I think a lot of what I've seen happen with people too, and I've seen transformation, and I've seen people move from they were once one way and now they're this way, or they talk about the struggle they had and now they're this different way. I think that what happens in this little corner is people engage in these conversations and those things happen. I think what you see is a lot of healing. And so we talk about big, weighty, heavy things sometimes. And then the other times it's happened is I've met Chad in real life. I haven't met Grim yet. I got to get that taken care of. But I've had conversations with people offline where we've reached out and they, seek me. I saw other people out where you start developing, you know, this, relationship, and you can get, in a real private conversation, you can get really vulnerable with one another, about struggles you're having or those sorts of things. So I think that sort of thing that happens is for me what I think a lot. It's a part of the magic about what this little corner